is film school the right fit for everyone?
The understanding of film school is this very competitive, high stakes, very serious kind of culture.
We all have the power of a pen and a piece of paper.
The person who told me I was not supposed to be there, the person who said you should probably leave this set, the person who said I didn't belong.
Your flexibility to throw yourself into your passion and focus more on learning than earning, it changes a lot.
Hey Spencer, film school, break it down.
Okay, so we're actually sitting in our film school right now. We are currently sophomores in film school, so we finished our first year.
How have we made it that far?
It's a miracle.
It really
right?
is.
But we thought it'd be interesting to break down kind of some of our experiences and also talk a bit about, is film school the right fit for everyone? Is this the right step to take to end up in your dream job, whatever that may be, whether you want to be a director, a writer, a cinematographer, or anything in between? So I think that's a good place to start. So I'd be curious to see, let's take a step back to day one, where you're like, the idea has popped into your brain, I might want to go to film school.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
What's your thought process when that comes into your mind? Like, what are you expecting?
I think stereotypes just fill my head when I hear film school. You know I'm from New York. I bring it up in every conversation. So the understanding of film school is this very competitive, high stakes, very serious, probably wearing berets kind of culture. Ultimately, it's almost a caricature of the art form. That's, I think, how I saw it in my head. And I knew I wasn't worthy of the mantle of film school either. That's the other.
So did that make you hesitant to?
Oh, entirely.
And so what thought process actually made you decide, like, I am going to take this leap? Because on paper,
Yeah.
like, we all know the stereotype of, like, struggling artist or, like,
For sure.
starving artist.
For sure.
And so I think there's always this hesitation both in people, their parents, whatever
Mhm.
the case may be, of like, oh, you want to get into
Yeah.
art?
Yeah.
Like, whoa, it's a
sure.
big red flag for a lot of people.
I'm decidedly an exception when it comes to the film school world because I did have the support of my parents, the complete support of my parents. And it was never, well, I think you should be a lawyer. It was, you should do, you need to do, you have to do what you want to do. And you have to work hard in doing so. So I could have been an accountant or a ballerina. They would have supported that. That's rare, especially in film school.
There's no doubt.
But
And
even like for you, I think we both share internal support from our families.
yeah, I would certainly agree, and I think
Yeah.
that's made it a lot easier for us. And I don't know that makes us fully qualified to speak on maybe other
Most
situations,
definitely.
but I think
We're privileged in that sense.
certainly.
Entirely. Yeah.
But what does come to mind is that there was a quote I heard one time, and I'm totally going to butcher this, but if you don't make the decision of what you want to do, even if it's not the right thing, because of someone else, you'll end up resenting them later in life or for the rest of your life. And that's not
sure.
worth it.
Yeah.
So while it's often difficult to make that decision initially,
Mhm.
I think following your heart is the right move in the long run.
Completely.
And so when it comes to you actually showed up day one, you have all these preconceived notions.
Mhm.
Were you surprised? Were you scared?
I think I was everything. I was nervous for the college elements, right? So I was nervous about like who was my roommate, what was the dining hall like, how was I going
Who's actually right behind the camera?
who's right behind
now.
the camera?
Hi,
who-
Luka.
We're now best friends, and
And it's still your roommate.
and
here
it's
too,
still my roommate, which again, I don't know
which
how it
doesn't work
happened.
out for everyone. I am not roommates with my roommate last year.
But now you're my roommate and his roommate.
I think an interesting thing that comes to mind is you've been here for a year, right?
Sure.
And you thought it was going to be this really competitive landscape.
Mhm.
When you say that it's not, do you mean that it's people don't care or people aren't trying to the same extent that you thought they were? Or what's your observations when it comes to that? And would it be better for you to be in a more competitive environment? Like, would
Sure,
that push you to
sure.
be?
I think I feel properly challenged, and it is competitive. I was expecting sabotage. I was expecting
Okay.
naivete. I was expecting taking advantage of other people. Again, I'm a New Yorker, so maybe that's just me being cynical.
Well, but do we know that that's actually an art school
Completely
thing in
valid.
general? Because
Completely
maybe
valid.
while our personal experience might be
Right.
a more collaborative nature, I think we also
Sure.
should be aware that there probably are film schools out there that are more cutthroat. And so I think
Most definitely.
when doing research, knowing the environment that you want to be in is very important.
Completely.
And to like understand the culture, not just
Right.
see like what the website
Yeah.
says, because they're all going to make
The
themselves
mission
look
statements
pretty.
are all the same, for sure. What did you think? What were your internal thoughts before even starting, before day one?
Let's take a step back to like when I'll say the same thing that I asked you, is like when it popped in my head.
Yeah.
I always loved making videos, we'll call
sure.
it. But it wasn't, I never really saw it as like an actual career path. So a lot of my life, I wanted to actually be an engineer. I don't know if I've ever told you that.
I've heard parts of the engineer.
Yeah.
Which makes sense as far as like,
But, like,
how we discuss.
Right.
But
And I always did like decent enough in school where that was a viable path for me.
sure.
And
Cannot relate.
through high school, don't lie to me. I know you did good. But I got really into theater in high school and
Right.
doing the set design and the set construction. And through that, I kind of really fell in love with this core principle of storytelling, which is really at the heart
Sure.
of art school. Not even film school,
Yes.
but like regardless of what exactly you're doing, art is storytelling, whether that's telling your story, telling a fictional story, telling
Completely.
a story in space.
Yeah.
It all comes back to story connecting with the soul. It's
Exactly.
about how can you reach people.
I'm going to interrupt you right now because I think you and I especially are rare because while we love films and devote ourselves to the filmmaking process and storytelling as this overarching cornerstone and piece of resistance that makes us us, I think both you and I don't discriminate the media. So if it was photography, if it was writing novels or making music, I think we would have a similar appreciation for the storytelling. It just so happens that film is ours.
Without a doubt.
We're so
And
much more focused on the actual story.
I think by holding film as this holy grail over any of the other artworks, you're actually
definitely.
insulting film as a piece, because
I completely agree.
film is principally photography
Completely.
and music and performance and
Yeah.
costume, and it's the combination of all these different things.
Mhm.
And so to view any of those as unimportant
Totally.
is ultimately just going to hurt from your own artwork.
Agree.
But to bring us back full circle,
Yeah, flip it on us.
I think I showed up to film school day one thinking like, okay, for someone to choose to go to film school, they're probably going to come here and think, this is the sentence I used in my head, and this probably wasn't the right mindset, but I thought, okay, everyone here thinks they're going to be the next Steven Spielberg, Christopher Nolan, insert any of these huge name directors,
Tarantino.
which we love them.
Of course.
But another thought that came to mind is not everyone here is going to be that.
Right.
And so I think day one, like one of the important things was to consider like what steps do we need to be taking to be able to create the size impact that we want. I think a trap that a lot of people fall into is they'll show up and it's like, okay, I decided to go to film school. I am here. So my career is decided. I'm going to make movies because I'm at college. Like if I go to nursing school, I'll be a nurse. If I go to this, I'll be that. There's a big caution around that, because I think what happens a lot of times is there's this overconfidence
Yes.
day one, or maybe not even day one, but like month one, or even after half a year, where it's like people start to think, and we've noticed this in some people around us, that they start to almost have this perspective of like they are Steven Spielberg or they are these people. And because of that, their mindset shifts to being like upholding that and like making people agree with that. And it's like, I need you to think that I'm valid as a filmmaker, instead of just how can I learn? Like, how can I grow? How can I figure this out?
sure.
Like, even right now, look around you. Like, this is a cable for a light because we didn't have an extension cord.
Right.
Like, mistake on our part.
Completely.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because with each one, the goal is just going to be to make it a little bit better.
For
and
sure.
hopefully, this is the least interesting conversation we ever have, because regardless of the order of which episode this is our first podcast shoot.
Yeah.
So
Completely.
hopefully you're not bored. But if you are, like, this is day one, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
Completely.
And I don't know that perspective is shared by everyone that goes to film school.
I completely agree. You and I have talked about this to no end. We find this disappointing. I find this disappointing that we find just as much enjoyment watching Kill Bill and Ratatouille. The story is everything for us. And we have the longest conversations going to 3 a.m. And even with Luka here.
Yeah.
Like, it's
problematic sometimes. 'Cause we
It
don't sleep.
really is. As we, consume boxes of cookies and play Rocket League talking about Kill Bill. And it's such an amazing relationship we all have. But again, the fact that we didn't bring an extension cord, that also reflects, I think, a little bit of who we are as people. Like, we're organized people. We do value equipment, but brother, we're not the gearheads. We're not the ones who are paying expert attention to our sensors, to X, Y, and Z. Now, do we know the difference between a 24 millimeter lens and a 50? Yes. Do we probably know how to use them? I'm gonna mess it up a few times, but by and large, the things that matter to us are the things that we hopefully will be able to grow
Agreed.
in. And I, for instance, want to be a screenwriter. I want to be a professional screenwriter who makes scripts, writes scripts that are then shot for film.
And perhaps not today, but we're going to have a lot of conversation about the modern state of Hollywood.
Yes.
And there's no doubt that they know what sensor they're using.
Of course.
Right? All these things that are taken care of. But if you're watching this and you want to make movies, chances are maybe you're not content with the movies you're seeing, and you want to create movies that inspired you when you were a kid.
Yeah.
And despite how much money Hollywood has and how much they're spending on all these projects, the thing that's not working is the paper, is the script, which is beautiful because that is the one thing we all have. We all have the power of a pen and a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And so regardless of if you're shooting on a red cinema camera or an ARRI, or if you even know what those mean, if you can write, then you have 90% of filmmaking done.
I completely agree. And just to bring it back to film school, something that I wish people know this, but I wish people exemplified this and personified this. You are your best you when it comes to storytelling. So, yeah, Christopher Nolan's great. Tarantino's great. Love it. But there's only one of those guys. And look, we've written together countless scripts, shot countless scripts, movies, and only we could have made those. Now, granted, they're not all winners, bro.
No, and they need a lot of work.
A lot of work.
But I like your point.
Yeah.
You're never going to be better at Christopher Nolan than making a Christopher Nolan movie.
That's a fact.
And so it's okay to be inspired by these people.
Of course.
But it's dangerous to try to become them because
Definitely.
they have their thing and you have your thing too. Anyone.
Exactly.
And so it's best to lean into that. And so that's a really interesting point.
And I would say that's a benefit to film school, is being surrounded by peers who, A, look up to those individuals, but B, are learning about their own artistic identity. And that's really cool.
Yes. And a question for you. You've mentioned that there's certain individuals that maybe sometimes you're a little disappointed by in their approach and conversations that you've had. But do you think that there's actually value in those interactions because you're able to observe things like that and learn from them?
I think one learns from your best friend, your circle, X, Y, and Z. But I have learned so much from the antagonist of the film set, the person who told me I was not supposed to be there, the person who said, you should probably leave this set, the person who said I didn't belong there. And how amazing that interaction was for me, because it fueled me to get to the next set, to write the next page, to do X, Y, and Z, and learn how wrong they were, not just in that moment, but they're wrong every single day. And sure, they want to be a first AC for, I don't know, whatever film they want to do. And power to them, good luck. But they also neglect those story things. Okay, we don't need to do the log line. We don't need to have the shot list down. Like, that doesn't matter.
We're just going to point out
a
cool camera with a fancy lens
exactly.
at a person.
And hey, like, a cool camera's a cool camera. I love Bullet Train.
Right now, I think we're using pretty cool cameras that
we're
very fortunate to be shooting on.
And brother man, I intentionally did not touch them because I do not know how to set them up. I messed around with the audio, got that locked down. But bro, I don't even know what cameras we're using. And that's fully honest.
And that's okay though, because that's not what you're trying to focus on. And I do think there's value in learning it.
I desperately want to learn more. And I watch my YouTube videos. I'm reading the manuals.
Well, and come episode 10, I think you'll be setting those up.
I'd like to think so. And I'm fascinated. Like I'm enamored by our equipment for sure, but it's also I definitely see those as the tools that build the pyramid,
Right.
not the pyramid itself, bro.
Completely agree.
And I think that's rare for film school. And just to bring it back to kind of our thesis is this worth it? Like, is our experience worth it for what we want to do on a professional level?
Agreed. So I think it's important to first break down what's the investment in film school.
For sure.
So there's the financial aspect,
Yep.
but there's also your time, right?
A lot
And
of time.
I think what's a huge consideration, whether you're going to film school or not, is at this point in your life, when you're the age that you're going to film school. And of course, there's graduate school, and we want to be open to all of that. But for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to simplify this a little bit. But you're pretty young, so your financial burden is a lot lower than as you get things like a car loan, water bill, electric bill. I know these things, as younger people, we don't necessarily want to talk about. But as these things stack up, your flexibility to throw yourself into your passion and focus more on learning than earning, it changes a lot as we grow. So this time is valuable regardless of what exactly you're doing. So I think that's the first thing to establish. The second thing is it's expensive. And there's a whole range of film
Shockingly
schools.
so.
It's mind-blowing. We're struggling here, y'all. This is why we started a podcast. No, I'm kidding. We probably will make a dime off this. But
It's okay.
But it is expensive. And there are options like you can look for in-state options, and there's even with if you're not doing that, there's still a huge range.
Yeah.
But it's a heavy investment, and so I think when going through this decision process, that's obviously going to be a huge consideration. And I think right off the bat, if you want to make movies, don't expect film school to be the only way to do that. So if it's completely not on the cards for you, I don't think that's a reason to give up on your dreams on what you want to do. That being said, there is a lot of benefits to film school. Of course, one that you'll hear a lot is networking. And I do think that's big because you get to network with your peers, your professors. You're just put in an environment to be around filmmakers, the community at large.
Definitely.
And that's huge. You get the formal education. You get the strictness of the schedule. Like, hey, this class is at this time. Whereas if you're doing learning on your own time, what's to stop you from being like, oh, I'll just sleep in more? There's a difference when you have an 8 a.m. and if you miss it, you're going to fail out of the class, which you're putting your money and time into.
For sure. You and I are stubborn individuals, which I think is a great quality most of the time.
Sometimes.
Other times, man, it gets in the way. But you and I really do refuse to miss classes. And I say that because we really do value this investment. On paper, in our heads, in our time. I mean, we don't like all of our classes. We know this. But our choice to go to them is almost non-existent. We need to go because it's $700 a class.
We never even
or
have a
whatever it is.
conversation that's like, should we not?
Exactly.
I mean, unless we are like bleeding out, we'll go.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been up till like 7 a.m. the night before and then gone to an 8 a.m. And
multiple times.
Maybe that's, and I'm not advising anyone to do that.
No, don't do that. Our devotion to our education.
Right. Once you attend film school, once you make that investment, you still have to do work to accept the value that it provides. And that's what I think our point is that you can pay the money, pay the time, but it's back to this idea of like, if you just think that you're going to end up being this person that you want to be without the effort that goes into it.
For sure.
That might not be the best way to think. And as artists, we're often very like, we have a reputation for being very loose and like not very
Professionally motivated.
Sure. And it's like, what, just when inspiration strikes,
Sure.
I'll go, and then the rest of the time I'll sit and binge something.
Yeah.
And like we all have those days. But just because you're not feeling inspired to write or create a story, it's like, what else could you learn? Maybe you could learn something technical when you're not feeling that other side, and that use of time is important.
I heard a mentor of mine describe film school. He said, it's not an escalator, it's a flight of stairs. And I like that because an escalator suggests that you can stand still and reach the top. Stairs you actually have to physically climb, which I think is accurate because sure, you can reach your degree, your education, you have your BFA, whatever it is, and go do something with it. But you and I go to expos, workshops, all the individual, we'll call them extracurriculars, if you will,
Sure.
of film school
Yeah.
that make this worth it. So we have had job offers. We have had opportunities to do X, Y, and Z, whether it be freelance, whether it be a moment of a shoot, whatever that is. That is a perfect example of our own hustle and our own kind of inclination to seek that out. Because I have talked to graduates who think, oh, I should have done this, and this more, been more tight in the community. And
Yeah.
I'm really proud of us for doing that.
And I don't want to make us the prime example
For
and
sure.
say that like we're not doing anything wrong in our approach.
For sure.
I think by the time we graduate,
Yeah.
we could have redone our freshman year 100 times better. And I don't know that that's avoidable.
For sure.
But I think if you can take as much of this knowledge up front, you'll be able to make better use of the time that you do have.
Completely.
There's another train of thought that I wanted to go down. And you've mentioned that we've been on a number of capstones. So this is
I gotta interrupt you. I'm so sorry. There's one other thing about film school that is a benefit for us. I'm so sorry.
excited.
You and Luka, if I had never gone to film school, if I had never had that opportunity, like, brother, we're gonna be working together for a very long time. And I met you this time last year.
Yeah.
And we talk basically like we've known each other since
We were born.
Yeah, since birth. Exactly. Which is so cool.
Yeah.
But like, we just happened to lock in on Elvis one day, the film, Baz Luhrmann, love it. And we're like, okay, let's talk about that. And then 17,000 conversations later, we're still talking about Elvis, and we live
Because
together.
there's always more to learn.
There's
from it.
always more to learn.
But another thing you said,
Yeah.
a film comes to mind.
Yeah.
So this idea of the escalator versus the staircase.
Yeah.
There's a Casey Neistat film that's about 20 seconds long, and Casey's walking on a moving sidewalk. You know the things they have at, like the airport.
Yeah.
But it's going the wrong way, and this is basically what it says. Life is like walking backwards on a moving sidewalk or whatever. If you stand still, you're going to move backwards.
Yeah.
If you walk, you'll stay in place. To get ahead, you have to hustle. And then he
Right.
starts jogging.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful analogy.
I completely agree.
And I think there's a lot that can be taken
Completely
away
agree.
from something, a phrase so simple and yet so fundamental to the way to approach film school. So if you know that you're going to be able to show up to film school and run up the escalator, not even just walk it, but like really, really make this work.
Yeah.
Or not the escalator, the staircase in that case. But I think that's how you can get the benefits of film school and then some. But now we good to go.
Capstone.
Okay,
Hit that.
capstones. So this is a concept that will be at pretty much any film school. It might be called something different. It might be called like a thesis film or something. But generally, like towards the end of your time at film school, you'll make like this final project that's kind of all the classes talk about it. Like they're always like, okay,
The culmination piece.
right. We're teaching you in this class your freshman year so you can make your capstone film when you're a senior.
Yep.
And I think we have kind of a bold opinion on these because
We do.
they're seen as this like holy, magical, almost like untouchable thing, and they're created to be this larger than life experience. And I think there is a value in them and they're important. But I also don't know that we have the right perspective on them, like, and just as a community in general. Because I think, first of all, if you show up day one to film school and you think, okay, you're going to spend 4 years, do you want, like, your takeaway from that to be one story? You want to tell one story. What has your experience been with capstones? Because
So this could be an entire episode, so I'm going to keep it real brief.
okay,
One, I don't think we can stress enough how much it is stress, the notion that this is your baby. This is your final imprint on the school, on our school.
I've also heard the phrase, "This is the ticket to the industry."
Right.
Like they will tell you, like, this is the way to get in.
Right. Which I find fascinating because there are, in volume, so many film sets that physically we could not be on every single one if we wanted to. Our freshman year, I don't know how many we were on, upwards of maybe 25. And I would say most, if not all, were disappointing. And I don't want to discriminate against the artistry or the artists. But I do want to acknowledge the motivation and drive that took place. There were many times when I would be on set and the director would say, yeah, we don't have a shot list yet, or the storyboard was finished last night.
Or even some questionable things like,
Yeah.
we don't have insurance.
Right. And mildly illegal activity when it comes to, we're just going to shoot in this target because. It's like, okay, that's a terrible idea and a terrible practice, but we're going to post it to a film fest to get the $25,000 reward.
Right.
That's just not how that works. In all, our experience being on a film set, we've done different roles from a production assistant to a grip for the lighting department, Jeannie, to second AC, which is assistant to camera, running the slate, the clapper. We first AC, which means you pull focus.
And if any of these things sound foreign or scary, do not even stress about it. We'll continue to dive into all this
most definitely
over future episodes.
These are different roles within different departments of the actual film set and film world. But ultimately, what I'm trying to say is we have had multiple different roles in different departments on different films. We've even produced a few ourselves, which is really exciting, but also reflects its own kind of, I don't know, economic and artistic disposition of value.
Yeah. So I think there's the side of the importance that they give to it. And
Yes.
I think really the ultimate gripe is that it seems that we've been on sets where the core creative team behind it doesn't even care about it as much as we do, when with the broader perspective, we're only there for the 3 days of production.
Yeah.
And all the roles are important. Like, this is their senior, like, after we've just described how the school makes it this amazing, like, final hurrah before you go, for us to be, there for 3 days, to bring a higher level of care to it than them, doesn't feel right. So that's a side of it.
Yeah.
There's also, I think, the weird dynamic of, like, senior and how they approach freshmen.
Yeah.
And we've had some unfortunate experiences, and we're kind of still freshmen. Like, we're just starting our sophomore year. So
We are 4 weeks in.
we've had some experiences that have been less than encouraging. And I don't like to talk about negative stuff, but I think it's important because to someone listening, you may have an experience one day that's discouraging, and I don't want you to let this stop you from trying, from continuing to push for
sure,
for your dreams, for what you want to do in this field. So what's your opinion on those experiences that we've had?
Well, let's ground ourselves a little bit. Why don't you tell the one incident that I know you're thinking of too, being on set and asking seniors and upperclassmen about capstones and having our own ideas.
Yeah. So
do you remember what I'm talking
Oh,
about?
I remember exactly what you're talking about. So there, Taye and I like to have big ideas and do ridiculous stuff, and we'll talk about some of those at some point.
Yeah.
But
Gotta
there
work on
were,
that.
we're on these capstone films, and we couldn't help but think like, I can't wait to make a capstone with you. Like, we were just, little freshmen, all excited, and these seniors are in a way mentors, right? Like this is the
Definitely. Yeah.
this is what there is to look up to. This is the presence that there is. And what happened was we kind of explained a little bit of our idea to one or a couple of these seniors. We were really excited about it. We talked about,
Assistant to director.
hey, we want to be able to fundraise this much
Yeah.
because we really care about production design. We want to be able to have an amazing set, really curate this environment for the actors. And we're like, do you have any advice? Or like, what do you think? And the advice we were given, I'm going to do this as coldly as possible, was just get like a couple $1,000s, make a film, and submit it. Like, it was so...
It was getting the job done.
Right.
It was making sandwiches.
It was so, why are we here? Are we here to just turn in an assignment and get the check mark? Because if so, why are we in this industry? Why do we want to make art? Why do we want to tell stories? Everything about that wasn't right.
It's very
and,
corporate.
And luckily, like, we knew to reject that advice.
Very much so.
But perhaps not everyone would be. So if you hear something like that, do not let anyone stifle your ambition, because while your ambition may sound crazy, you're crazy until you're not. And anyone you hear that does something exceptional was probably crazy until they made it work.
I'll take it a step further. We called them out on it too. We said, are you serious? Like, that's your final project. And they refuted, like, oh, it doesn't matter. Oh,
Yeah.
There are
and
100
we were
projects to be on.
when they doubted that we would be able to like fundraise what we wanted to fundraise.
Exactly.
And we were like, we will.
We were talking about a 5-figure budget. And
Yes. In low 5 figures.
Very low 5 figures.
Which is larger than the average capstone budget.
Very much so.
But not unfathomable. And like we're not even like you'll learn there's a ton of ways to raise funds for films. Like this is a doable thing.
Yeah.
It is like businessy type work. It's logistics, but it's doable. The money's there.
Every year, money is left on the table for films to be made.
There is literally free money to make movies.
Yeah.
You just have to know where to look.
Exactly.
And maybe that's a future. If people are interested in that, let us know. This is a whole world of conversation, but it's we like to be all about the art, and it sucks that sometimes we have to talk about money, but unfortunately, it is the vehicle that like enables us to create art because our art form is expensive. I mean,
no, for sure.
look around, like the investment in all of this.
Yeah.
We've been probably gathering since we were like 12 years old.
Brother, I asked for hard drives for my birthday.
Yeah.
I'm always so excited to be on set, and don't tell others this, but I would pay to be there. Like I'm just excited to be on set. I'm just excited to be a part of creating something that wasn't there
amazing.
Before. It's thrilling, and more than that, I occasionally will stop for a moment and just take a mental picture, be like, this is my life.
And what's so amazing is you and I put on a film set.
Yes.
And we actually had BTS video happening. And so for us to get to look back at that, you can just see the level of passion and excitement and the energy that's in the air in some of those clips. And it's truly a magical thing. Yeah. And I think that can be found in a capstone. I don't want people to hear this and not go on them. I think it's a good experience, even if it's a bad experience.
Very much
I think
so.
having
Very
the
much
bad
so.
experience in that contained environment, there's a lot to learn from it.
For sure.
So go on capstones, to be clear. But go into them aware of these flaws and don't let them kind of get in your way.
And let's take it a step further. Some of the capstones I've been on, the very last project that I was on last weekend was really exciting. Now, granted, there was a lot going on. There were so many different people. We didn't have all the equipment. Many hoops to jump through. But the people are what make a film set. And people forget that people make films.
It's true.
And I say that because someone is handing Christopher Nolan a coffee. Someone is printing the script. Someone is doing all of the things that make the visuals pretty and the sound illustrious. Like everything that goes into it.
We forget sometimes because
Very much
film
so.
is this larger than life thing that it's almost unfathomable to think that like you could make that.
Yeah.
But you can. Like
It's
so possible, and it's the people that make it.
Entirely
Every
so.
single person.
And we're not curing cancer, brother. We don't make policy. We're not doing that kind of work. The luxury that is making films.
It's a huge privilege.
It's such a privilege. But more than that, to make it with good people. Brother, that's nirvana. That's a seventh heaven of creation and artistry that I cannot express my gratitude when I do experience it. We did a 24-hour shoot this past year. And
I know that's going to bring up a million questions.
It will, and wait for an episode.
Back to that later.
For sure. But that set, man, every single crew member you and I chose. You were the director. We were both producer. I was the executive producer. You were the director, and I was the first AD. Again, we'll break down those roles. Don't
and you
joke.
wrote it.
I did happen to write it.
Yeah, just like just the thing that you want to do, you know.
Brother, we had so many roles. Anyway, point is, every single individual on that set we got to choose. And it was really touching to see the people we ask show up for us, come out for us, and be there, carry heavy C-stands, move craft service, just be a part of it all.
It's incredible. And for us to have, not us, I don't like that word, for the team to have showed up the way that they did, because people showed up, they did their role, but then they went above and beyond. Like you said, like an actor would go and move a case of water if it needed to be moved. And in traditional Hollywood, you probably won't see that, and it's not the culture, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think I was so lovely to work with those people because we knew that they didn't view that as beneath them.
No,
because it's all part of the creation.
Yeah.
It's moving the case of water is just important
Yeah.
as throwing the light on the lead actor.
Yeah.
Because without either one of those, there's no movie.
the equity of set is something you and I value so very much. And we're getting off topic at this point, but that was a really exciting experience that we do have to talk about at some point. But going back to
We
film
probably
school,
should do a whole episode on it. So.
very much so. But going back to the capstone, it's disappointing a lot of the time when we are on set. But being able to put on your own sets and being able to create things you want to create is a huge luxury in film school that you really will not be able to do professionally straight out of college. I think that's a major benefit to film school is you are making what you want with the people you want.
Yes, there's a flexibility when you're in film school to create that rarely is in the industry when you're stepping in day one, just due to the nature of it. So I think like when you're thinking about film school, it's important to consider like where do you want to end up at the end of it? Where do you want to be? What is your goal?
That's
and
right.
you have, on an average, 4 years. Your program might be a little different, but in 4 years, if you lay that out, if you lay out an actual game plan that has a tangible approach, you can do a lot more than maybe just this capstone. And that's back to the idea of like value it because it is important.
Yeah.
But also don't treat that as your exclusive ability to create something creative. There's so many other ways to make art, to do things, and if you have that game plan and you carry through with that, who knows where you'll be in 4 years. And I think from the same school, from the same classes, two people could end up in very different spots just based on their approach. And so I think film school can hand you everything you need, but you still have to like reach out, grab it, build it up to be what it needs to be. Like they'll give you those raw materials.
For sure.
And so if that sounds like something that's interesting to you, then film school might be the right place to be.
Let's go back to this end result though, because I want to touch on that further and kind of shift our conversation here. What is the end result? What is our goal with our degree?
Personally or just in general?
Let's start personally and then go more broadly.
Okay. What it really comes down to is to leave with as much knowledge as possible that we didn't have before.
Sure.
Because it's easy to think about it in terms of something more trackable, like, oh, I want to make 10 short films, or I want to make a feature film or a show, or like something like this. But I think that's an outcome, right?
It's a byproduct.
Right. The goals should be things that like you can more clearly define and control.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's that each week I want to be able to write in a journal 10 things that I learned that are significantly improving my workflow, me as an artist, me as a person, me as an individual. And I'm not saying that that's the right approach because it's not for everyone, but I think the outcome needs to be about putting yourself in an environment where you're going to learn the most. Because at this age, that is what is the focus. Yeah. And I know that sounds very like all broad and like you're like, but I just want to like make something. Like I want to make the epic space movie.
Sure.
And that's okay. You can want that. But if the learning never happens and you're only looking at step 1,000, then steps 1 through 10 are going to be forgotten about.
No, for sure. I think I agree with what you said, and I'll take it. I'll throw it through my lens of professionalism. I think I want to have evolved in my learning and in my education, more than just a degree, more than just a piece of paper. I wish to learn the cameras. I wish to learn the lenses. I wish to learn the cinematography elements. And that goes for every element, every department. So sound, everything I can. Just be a sponge in the classroom and absorb it all.
Agreed.
Further, on a professional level, I want to know how to be on a set and be not only helpful but thrive. I want to professionally learn what connection means on a larger scale. I desperately want to know the politics of what that can look like today, tomorrow, and in the future. Being on set, on a student film is one thing, but I want to know how it translates to the professional world. Because I want to do this for as long as I can. And again, secret time, I want to do it forever. And even if I have to pay to be there, man, I love it that much.
I love that.
And sure, again, Christopher Nolan, Spike Lee, all of it. Love those guys. But I also want to know what it looks like to define that connection when I'm working with an indie filmmaker and someone who doesn't necessarily have that budget or whatever it looks like, but we're in a professional environment where that is the clue and the cue.
Without a doubt. And I love what you said about the sponge, because I think there's kind of two main approaches when it comes to learning outcomes. Like, and this might also vary on the school, but you can like really niche and like, hey, I really just care about camera. Like, I just want to figure out how do I get shots that enable the story to be the best that it can.
Yeah.
Or maybe for someone it's writing or whatever these different things are. But I also think in most of those roles, having perspective on all these other jobs is imperative, almost required to do them properly. And so something you'll see very commonly is someone wants to direct a movie, produce a movie. To be able to direct a film, you're not just getting to like show up on set and like make a pretty picture. It's about bringing all of these different art forms together.
Yeah.
And so to be able to communicate with sound and value sound and understand their struggles, it's good to have done it at least a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you often hear like, oh, this department gets overlooked, this department gets overlooked. But if you have knowledge in all these different realms, you'll never be maybe the expert in all of them.
Sure.
But you know how to speak to all of them
Very
and pull
much.
them together to create your vision.
Yeah.
So it often might feel like, oh, why am I having to take this sound class?
Yes.
Like, I just want to direct a movie.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you are learning how to direct a movie.
Yes.
Because by understanding
Yes.
sound, now you know how to communicate with your sound person to get them to understand your vision and do their job to the best of their ability.
Yeah.
And as a leader, to have the empathy of living through what these different roles are like, that will allow you to create a way better environment for all of them.
You and I have both had retail jobs, and we've had jobs in the food industry, or you have.
Yeah, technically. I worked at a concessions for a movie theater briefly.
Exactly. But the idea of the kitchen or the idea of the store
I like this
front.
analogy.
Yeah. I think it's really important for everyone to wash dishes. So when you're on set and you're washing dishes and then you stop washing dishes and then you're, clearing tables and then you're serving people, you know how to help the busboy and you know how to help the people washing dishes.
Something you said to me last year that I think really made me understand your character as a person and why I appreciate you.
I don't know.
Not just as a collaborator, but as an individual, is you said, I like a king who sweeps. And what he means by that is that for someone to possess the power of king and yet not view sweeping as beneath them makes them a better leader, makes them a better king.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is everything. And that's fundamentally what's at this point.
That's exactly what I mean. No, I think that's exactly what I mean is I have had directors, I've had different individuals on set ask for support, and the director was at hand and easily accessible, and they said, no, that's not my job, or no, that's your job, or no, that's beneath me. And I found that interesting for 45,000 different reasons, but two come to mind just straight off the bat. One, that's mean. That's just, as a person, that's unethical.
You're degrading someone else's
Hugely.
job and career.
And two, it's a student film. So they will be in that role a lot longer than they will direct. Just statistically, even if they get a chance to direct. I don't wish to direct professionally or in student films. It's not something that I'm motivated to do. I probably will end up doing it at some point just because of classes, just because of how the cookie crumbles. But all that to say, the idea of sweeping takes many forms. So that's carrying apple boxes. That's carrying that case of water. But it's also
the way that the actor did.
Like the way that the actor did.
Moving a light.
Exactly.
It's right there in front of you.
Exactly. But it's also that gratitude. It's also that appreciation. Saying thank you on a film set is rare. Like Mr. Clean with hair, rare.
Or at least on the student films that we've been on.
For sure.
We'd like to hope that the industry has that figured out.
That goes back to the culture that you and I really want to build on set. The idea that We hope to be maybe not kings who's sweet, but maybe the jacks or the dukes that's sweet. We want to have those roles.
Well, and the first word doesn't actually matter. The
No,
anyone who
it
sweeps.
doesn't.
Because
Exactly.
regardless, sweeping is still imperative. It's still part of what we need to make
The
this
floors
film.
have to be swept.
Swept.
Swept. Swept. Wow.
I'm sorry.
No.
I had to.
Jeez.
I love it. Okay.
Wow.
To
Moving on.
to start to bring us around towards the end here.
Yeah.
If I had to ask you the question,
Mhm.
should you go to film school? Should I go to film school? If someone's
Yeah.
asking you that,
Mhm.
what's your 2-minute spiel to them? Like what
Amazing.
is your advice
Break it down.
in that?
Okay, jump in when you want, but I think you have to start with asking yourself a key question. One, why do you want to go? If it's a financial element, if there are other elements at play, that is one thing. But if you want to be in the film industry, if you want to tell stories, really clarify and solidify what it is you want out of it. So for instance, me, I want to tell stories, plain and simple. I would like to live off of my stories, plain and simple. Film school is teaching me how to do that, and I probably could have gotten most of the information without it. That being said, I never would have met you. That being said, I never would have networked with professional filmmakers to get to that next step. So again, that idea of the byproduct, college just happens to be one of those avenues that works for me. Now, I like an educational edifice. That's a comforting space for me. So I do happen to, I'll use the word thrive in that form. That's a comforting space for me. But not for everyone.
The why is fundamentally what's
Yes.
important. And there was a very brief point in my life where I wanted to be an actor. But the why was wrong. I really loved watching like my favorite actors on Jimmy Kimmel or The Wired, like sticker reveal, the Google autocomplete things. Like I thought that was so cool.
I love that.
And I just imagined like I would love to do that.
Yeah.
But what that is like looking at the red carpet and saying I want to make movies so I can stand on the red carpet. And that's not the right why. And the moment I got clarity on that, I understood that I didn't want to be an actor.
Yeah.
There was just an attractive nature of this thing that I thought was cool. So it's this idea of if the only thing that you want is to walk on the red carpet or to be on the late night talk show, then I don't know if you'll get there.
For sure.
And that doesn't mean you can't value that or think that that's cool, because I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
But the thing that gets people there is sitting alone in a dark room typing a script, or like whatever is the process to create this artwork. Yeah. That's what enables the rest of that. It's the same idea as how the paper, the script, the thing that everyone can control is what enables the whole rest of the film. You can blow $200 million if the paper is wrong.
Yeah. It's been done.
And I think that's the same approach with film school, is you can blow that time and money if you're not concerned about the paper, the why, and instead concerned about, we'll call it the glory. Okay.
Briefcase?
So let's do it. So if you don't know what he meant when he said briefcase there, we have this segment called the briefcase segment. And we actually have a briefcase, but I may or may not have forgotten it. And what we want to do is in this briefcase just have a bunch of like little slips of paper of random questions. If you have a question, you can leave one in the comment section and we'll throw it in there. That is Film School.
That's Film School.
With that, you could click on screen right now to check out another episode. We actually had a pretty special guest, so I checked that one out.